everyone, welcome to my channel. Here on the Sheenapreneur channel, I share information about government contracting, veteran business content, and other business tips. What's going on, everyone? It is Sheena, aka Sheenapreneur, your favorite veteran. And I have like a super special guest. Like, I know I say that, but like for real, this is the one time that I have been able to interview like the director of procurement. Oh my God, this is like too exciting because he is here to give so much game, free game, okay? And I had to like say, please come on my channel because my people need to hear like the real stuff, not the stuff that we've been hearing on the interwebs of people that are not experts. He is the expert and he's been doing it for quite a long time. So please, Mr. Yasin, please introduce yourself to my audience.
Good evening. Well, good afternoon. It's still afternoon still. So good afternoon, Sheena, and to your audience. My name is Yasin Mohammed, and I'm a former director of procurement at a state level, and I'm currently the director for strategic sourcing and category management, also at the state level.
Okay, so are we able to say the state? No. Okay.
I'd rather keep Just
keeping that clear. Okay, boom, at the state level. So you guys know that I talk a lot about local contracting, and so that's why this was a great match, especially with all the things that are changing. And so when him and I had a conversation, I was like, oh my God, we got to save some of this for the show, because it was stuff that I didn't even know, just the details. I'm a very detailed person, and sometimes people just need to hear, this is what I've actually seen. Like I'm dealing with this today. And if you guys remember, we were supposed to have this interview about a week or two ago, and he had some big money on the table. He's like, look, I cannot, because there's a lot of money at risk. And I'm like, hey, I totally understand. So I'm so glad that you came back. I really appreciate it. So tell us how long you've been doing procurement.
Well, let's see. What year are we in? We're in 2005. Right. So, gosh, it's been about 25 years at this point. And I think like everybody else who you hear about, well, nowadays you see that there are a lot of programs actually that are geared for supply chain and for procurement, and there's actually academic programs that people can go to school and get degrees in or certificates in this. But way back in the 90s, back in the day, when I started doing this, actually, most people actually fell into this, right? They were just told by an organization to to purchase something, and through the course of you having to purchase something, then you sort of stumbled upon, back then it was called purchasing or buying or acquisitions, and over the course of time it's become known as procurement. So I started out as I actually didn't want to do procurement. Obviously I went to school for political science, and I wanted to be in politics, and I wanted to change the world and do all of these things, different things, represent my community, and things of that nature. So I actually graduated from college, got a job in politics, and I saw really the reality of really what goes down behind the closed doors or behind the curtain. So didn't really like it that much, and said, I'm actually pretty honest, and
that part.
Right. So I went over and I started working for the United Nations. And as a result of that, I had to purchase some conference space for a conference that we were doing. And that just started my career back in the year 2000. I've been doing this since the year 2000 now. So.
Wow. And that's funny because I remember when people were card holders, like, me being in the military, people that were card holders, and they were like, I have to go to this stupid purchasing class, or they're making me go to school. And it's like, oh my goodness, I had no clue that that's what they were actually doing. So of course, if I can rewind time, so you kind of fell into it, I avoided it. And then, here we are. So it's just so funny how things happen for you that you didn't even plan to end up being a great thing for you, in my opinion.
Yeah. what actually ended up happening was that as I was working at the United Nations, and I was actually working in the Office of Legal Affairs. Funny enough, it was just, still sort of a political and legal arena, but I was working for the Law of the Seas, for this program called Law of the Seas, and part of that program was basically coming up with a curriculum to train all the different member states throughout the world on their responsibilities as it related to the seas. And so that happened, that process got me into ordering some, not only, conference space, but hotel rooms, travel and airfare for our participants. And as a result of that, I got an opportunity to go on mission to Africa, to West Africa. And I went over to the country of Sierra Leone right after they were involved in a 10-year civil war. And so part of my job there was to erect this new court that was an agreement between the United Nations and the government of Sierra Leone. And basically, I was thrown into procurement. I'm talking about,
Wow.
construction.
You didn't have a life jacket.
No, it was just, we got in. So I landed in country. The peace treaty was signed, sometime like in late July, and I was in the country 2 weeks later, already, putting out bids, trying to get vehicles, trying to get living space, trying to, just trying to figure all these things out. So I had a on the job training, OJT, as we call it. Right. So from there I did that for a few years, and that was really a really great experience where I kind of got my teeth into procurement and learning a lot of the the principles of fair competition and having opportunities for not just for the big players but for the small players as well. So that's where I kind of got my feet wet in there. So
and that's a lot. I mean, like, can you imagine you're in a whole different country and they're like, hey, make this work, and you're just learning the job, and then you're trying to be, follow the laws that you're just really learning, and then the laws of the other country. That's a lot. And so sometimes it's best to be thrown into the thick of it in order to have the context, because we can read stuff all day, but there might be one detail missing that the context kind of bridges that gap.
That's a great point, and we'll get into that later about details. Details.
Right, because I was like some of the things like you were telling me. Okay, so former director of procurement, but strategic sourcing. So like what's kind of the difference of that, and what does your job entail now?
Right. So, previously I was responsible for a team of up to about, I would say about 60 people, but between 60 or 70 people. And that's more about, operations, right? So when we're talking about procurement operations, it's the day-to-day of the actual procurement unit. We're talking, all of the different procurements that are going on, all of the different issues that are happening, just the day-to-day functioning of the department. That was my role, and, managing that department. And we did about 1,100 procurements, per year, over $1 billion in procurement spend, throughout the office.
Wait. Okay, let's slow that down. So that's like 3 a day, right? Almost. Because 5 days, right? That's like.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Well, there's a lot of stuff that happens in batches. I mean, we have our big procurements that take a lot of time. And then we have other things that are, that are renewals or things that are just purchases. So there's a big flow of what we got going on. They're not always, big contracts, right? Sometimes they're just purchases.
But even still, like, because I really want this to be clear. I had a chance to sit with the VA, one of the buyers at the VA the other day, and he was like showing me his system of what he has to do just for a little to buy a mop. Like as a purchase order, he has to go through. They don't have like a blanket purchase order for some reason at that location.
Yeah.
So like even if you're doing a huge, massive contract or evaluating a proposal. So you're evaluating, then you're issuing, and then essentially managing, right? That's one large thing. And then you got a small quote that you have to deal with. And so sometimes the smaller ones are the same damn headache as the large ones. And so you're talking about you essentially are issuing out, even if there's a gap, with a month because you have a large one, you're still doing 1,100 a year. So if you were to break that down to 3 a day, you're managing, like you're issuing them out. Then you got to deal with the knuckleheads who are sending you, asking you 1,000 questions. Then you're dealing with when the stuff goes bad. And then like there's still, so when y'all be calling these contracting officers, okay, they dealing with a lot of stuff. So,
yes, they are. Yes, they are, and so unfortunately, I mean, I'm gonna say this is that the people that call us day in and day out and that quote unquote bother us, I'm just gonna call them being persistent. Okay. They're doing their due diligence, they're doing what they need to do, right? And but just have a little heart and understand that you are one amongst many who are doing the same thing. And it's good to get your name, known, but there's that fine line between having your name known and you being thought of as a nuisance, right? And I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes some people can be put into that category depending on how they come across and on how they, take the interaction. So, my advice on that is that definitely reach out and definitely, reach out and be friendly, but be very friendly as possible, because I understand, as Sheena said, procurement officers are normally managing a whole host of activities, not just that one project.
And so that's a great segue because I really want to dive into this because people ask me this all the time. Should I reach back out? If I lose, should I reach back out? Should I, it's past the date, it's past the questions period. Should I? And so, I'm thinking that yes, there is a fine line between being a nuisance and being persistent, but then also coming with the right conversation, right? So me calling you and saying, how do I do government contracting? That's, I'm sure that's going to piss you off immediately. Yeah, so piss anyone off. I mean, truthfully. So, and people do that, I'm sure. So what is the best way okay, so let me give 2 scenarios. So I'm sure people call about a specific opportunity, right? And then there's some that are just calling you, they want to introduce themselves. Yep. So in both of those, what is the best way to approach, you in your position now? Yep. Because you have some say so, right? Because of what you do, you have some influence, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And then as being the person that's actually like, boom, yes, this person can get the contract,
Yeah, just as a matter of course, I tend to really welcome all meetings, and just because of the fact that I'm not an expert in your field, so the government is not an expert in many fields. One thing we're not experts in is in actually doing a lot of things. A lot of things are actually the experts are those out there in the field in the open market. And so for that reason, I like to take all meetings that are brought forward. You may have a product that I don't know that I need, right? You may have a solution to a problem that I don't know that I have. So so because of that, I like to at least I'll take 15 to 20 minute introductory calls or meetings. But what I ask is that if you are making a cold call or a cold, introduction, just introduce yourself, state, what your firm is, what you guys provide. Sometimes I really get annoyed by the emails that try to trick me into like responding, and they have like, they have all these techniques by like, adding RE at the top to make it seem like, like we've had a conversation already.
I've been guilty of that. I don't lie. I've done that before.
Oops. Well, because I know off the bat when I'm looking at it, I'm like, I know this is not no conversation that we've had before. Okay. Or putting calendar invites on my calendar without asking me. That really annoys me. So like it's just things like that is like, just make the introduction. And normally I like to, a normal response time should be 24 to 48 hours at least to make the initial connection.
Yeah.
But the actual meeting may come sometime later, right? But at least make that introductory email. If it's a phone call, I prefer it's the email.
Okay.
And it's much easier for me to respond to, because what a lot of times what I do is that I'll give you some information, right? I don't know what your level of knowledge is when you're connecting with me. So I'll give you some resources. I'll have like a little email that I'll draft up and send you to to our website and give you some resources and say, go here, go there. Now, the next time you contact me, hopefully you should have some pointed questions, right? There should actually be questions that you have after reading the material, after becoming acquainted with our process. Now you have a better use of your time and my time, that we can actually talk and have a better conversation. So
pointed questions, pointed, not just how you do that. So, okay, you gave what annoys you, and I'm sure that's shared across the board, right? So how would someone get a meeting with you? Like just
send an email. You just send an email. Hey, this is my name. This is my company. We provide this. I'd love to schedule an introductory. I'd love to schedule an introductory meeting, and
do it.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10 we'll do it, unless there's some caveats there where some political stuff. If you might be a lobbyist, or there's a specific open procurement that you are part of and that you're trying to meet about, those are times that we won't take that meeting.
Okay, I gotta ask something about that too. Okay, so I like what you said, that you guys are not experts in your field, and I talk about that all the time, because when people say, what should I, what price should I give? I'm like, you're the expert. Like, why are you asking me? I have no clue. Like, you should, if you are, because some people start in different industries. They worked in one industry. I started in a totally different industry. I understand pricing can be a pain, but also know that when you're bringing your pricing, you're bringing it to also a quote unquote non-expert, but you've also probably seen some of this stuff. So you can't pull the wool over your eyes. Mm-hmm. But just knowing your pricing, that wouldn't be a question for the contracting officer or anyone that's working in procurement either. That's for you as the contractor. That's your business. So you should know your pricing. So that's a really, really good point.
Yeah, let me give you some tips on that, on pricing. And I know pricing can be a difficult thing sometimes, particularly for somebody who's starting out, right, and trying to get in the game or get their foot in the door. Obviously pricing can make or break you. So one thing you want to do is do some research. Not only can you look at the marketplace, there's a lot of tools out there and indexes that you can look at to see what some of the market rates are for whatever your industry is. But another avenue that you can take is looking up any prior procurements, right? So you can go ahead and do a Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA a request, and you can look at any previous solicitation that matches the current one that you're looking at, or you're looking at responding to, and you can request the past winning bids or proposals, and there you'll be able to see what some sort of, at least what a winning rate was, right? And you can use inflation, you can use a percentage, just based on the time frame between when that last bid was and what now is. You could do some math and come up with your numbers, but at least you have some research. I don't know how many people, I'm sure a lot of people own their homes, and they know that when you bought a home, you did a comp, right? You got comps from different houses in the neighborhood that sort of match what the home that you were looking to buy. It's the same thing here, right? You do a comp, basically you look at the other contracts and see what were the winning bids for those contracts, and then you try to set your point somewhere along those lines.
I really like that example. The comps in the neighborhood. That's a really good way to put it. And so I tell people,
I'm a real estate agent as well, by the way. So
are you? Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay, y'all trying to buy in the? Well, I can't say where you at, but like
in the DC area, DC metro
area. Yes, yes. If you try to buy a house, he's your man. Okay. So I really like that, because I tell people all the time to do an open records request, which is what you just said. Freedom of what is it?
Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. But in some states it's just called Public Information Act, but at the federal level it's called FOIA.
Right. And so also, you can do, so there's some locations, cities, counties, states that you have to do that type of request. But then also there's some of the sites where it's listed right there. Now it might just be the pricing, or it might just be like the award with the price and who won it. But as far as when you do the open records request, I'm going to call it that. I'm sorry, because that's my go-to. When you do the open records request, does it give you the entire proposal?
Yes, you can request the entire proposal. You can request that. So there's two ways to go about it, right? A lot of times, some procurement offices actually do not have a policy against that, and they will share with you the past winning proposals, right? And it's the winning proposals, not the losing ones. They'll share with you the winning ones. And you know, right? But some offices will not. They have a policy against that.
Right.
And you actually have to request it through the official channels of going through a Public Information Act request.
Okay. So we're gonna stick a pin in that real quick, because we got us our first super chat. Thank you, Robert Daniels, for the super chat. Appreciate it so much. This really, really helps, because look, we out here sharing free game, but you get millions of dollars. When we had to cancel that last interview, I don't even want to tell you how many millions he said was on the table. I was like, please go handle your business, because what? That's a lot. That's a lot. So thank you so much, Robert, for that super chat. And Joy says, yes, the FOIA, so everybody can see it on the screen and how it looks. And please make sure you hit like on this video. The likes don't match how many people are viewing. There's a lot of y'all viewing, and the likes don't match. And share this video with someone that might find it beneficial. I'm just gonna go through a couple of these comments. Thank you so much, TJ. That's my baby. Thank you so much, Tay. Amazing video. A whole bunch of hellos. Okay, boom. So going back to the stuff, the nitty gritty, right? So in your actual position, and I'm just going to ask. So if I say, hey, I'm talking to you right now, we right here on YouTube, and I'm saying, look, I do janitorial, and you need janitorial in this specific building, okay? Because I know I've seen there's a gap in service, or I've been to the building look raggedy, so I can replace that. And let's say it's up for renewal in March, in April. Mm-hmm. So can I come to you and say, listen, I feel like, you know, we can provide a better service. Can I give you an unsolicited proposal? Like, is that how that works for you?
So so currently we do not accept unsolicited proposals.
I tried, Joe. I tried.
However, there's some legislation in the works that may change that. You know, there may be some instances where we will allow that, but that's still making its way through the proper legislative channel. So there's more to come on that. But in terms of that particular scenario, I mean, I'll give you what normally would happen in a jurisdiction, you know, and this obviously may vary, you know, jurisdiction by jurisdiction, which is really important. Why you should know your statutes and your regulations, you know, regarding procurement. It's public information, you know, so all you have to do is go out there and get it. But for example, in that particular situation, you know, my particular state has a requirement that those types of solicitations, or those types of opportunities are presented to a preferred provider first. And what we mean by preferred provider, hold on a second, let me make sure my computer doesn't restart. It's trying to give me one of those restarts. Hold on.
It better not.
Yes. Okay, yeah. So, you know, we have what we call a preferred provider program. So what that means is that in some instances, before an agency or an entity, a department, is able to go outside to solicit for services, they have to go through whatever process this is. These vendors are preferred vendors, and in this case, in my case, the preferred program that we deal with has to do with people with developmental disabilities.
Like ability one type.
Yes, right. So they're for agencies. Okay. They're for agencies who deal with that population, right? So the state understands that they're going to have some sort of premium to pay for these contracts sometimes in order to support that population, right? So obviously that population cannot support all of the needs of the state. So once they pass on the opportunity, right? We say, hey, you guys, we have this opportunity. This building is in the needs of janitorial services. This is the scope right here. They say, no, you know, our hands are full. We're at capacity. We don't have any more vendors to do this job. We'll give you a waiver. So from that point now, we'll take this and put it out to, you know, on the street, low bid. And it's just a matter of who gives us the lowest bid.
Okay, so let me unpack all of that because you know, I understand what you're saying, and I'm actually going through that right now with another state. So just pinning that real quick.
Okay.
So thank you so much, Sasha. She's a GovCon now student. Boop. I appreciate you guys so much for the super chats. They make a huge difference in this channel, for real, because I won't be able to stick around like doing this stuff for free, and neither will Yasin, okay, and everybody else that we have on here if we don't get the support. So I really, really appreciate this. Okay, so the program that you're talking about is called preferred vendor program, right, and it deals with disabled persons. So on the federal side, that's called Ability One. And then the state that I'm dealing with is called Ability something else. And so I'm finding now, it's so funny you say that a lot of states have this, it's just called something else. Mm-hmm. So what he's saying is people, now with the state I'm working with, they said 75% of your employees have to be disabled, and for them it includes disabled veterans as well. So I was like, boom, perfect. So you can have your workforce disabled 75%, and then you have basically no bid to get these, for us, janitorial contracts. So it just basically comes to you, like it just, here you go, and you just have to be able to provide the support. And so the state that I'm working with, since they are like a pseudo nonprofit type thing, that they're able, if there's training that's needed, they also provide the training. So I was like this is a whole different level of assistance that we need, especially when you're first starting. And if you're able to, you know, want to deal with the population of, you know, disabled persons, then it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, the nonprofit that you mentioned, you know, many times those nonprofits, they act like MSPs, as in managed service providers. They basically coordinate between the, you know, the vendors that have, you know, the employees that fit the profile and the state, and then they agree on pricing. And like you said, it is sort of a no bid situation in terms that you're offered first rights of refusal at these contracts. So, you know, things like janitorial, things like unarmed security guard services.
Wow.
Some other, you know, there's a host of other services that fall in that category. But before we go out to market, they get first right of refusal. Yeah.
That's the cheat code. I mean, if you're willing, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, you're not trying to, and I don't want to say cheat code because that sounds dirty, right? But like, that's if you have that industry, which a lot of my followers do because they got into government contracting, doing what I do essentially, and a lot of people do janitorial. And so if you're able to coordinate with a state that does, which I'm sure most states do, and then you, whether directly with the state, like you said, with the preferred vendor, or with a nonprofit that kind of works as a in between. And then also with this particular nonprofit that I'm working with, they're, you know, really, really trying to make sure that the business owners are being taken care of. The businesses are being taken care of. Yep. So that's even an extra layer of protection for, you know, the business owner. So anywho, all right. So moving on. Thank you for that.
Let me just say one thing.
Please.
Don't feel bad about you know, quote unquote cheat code. I mean, it is what it is. You know, this is it's, you know, that's the game, right? That's the game that's being played. So
okay, so with that, now you said if I come to you and I'm like, hey, this building is raggedy and we want to provide janitorial services, you have to offer it to that program first. And then they're like, no, we're too busy. You've already talked to me, so you don't need to put it out for bid.
Can't do that. Yeah, I wish I could. I wish I could, but you know, I wish I could.
Okay, so but you still influence like who gets chosen. I mean, in a way, like it has to be lowest bid, has to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, really, you know, one thing. It's funny because I had when I first started working at the state several years ago, I had there was a time that we had some sort of like, well, this word is a forbidden word right now, but we had a DEI,
right.
you know, like a DEI survey or, you know, something like that. It was something to that of that nature, and they wanted us to break down how we were, you know, how we were putting that forward, how we were putting DEI forward in a procurement process. And it was really a difficult question for me to answer, because my answer was, our process in itself is fair, and it does not provide any, you know, it doesn't give preference to anyone. It is a fair process. You know, we put the information out there and we tell you what we want, you know, and those who provide that information in the way that we ask for it, they move on to the next step. You know, it's a very fair process. So there's really no place for you know,
preference.
Yeah, for somebody to say, oh, well, this person, you know, and I mean, obviously, right, an individual, individuals are individuals, and individuals are prone to, you know, whether it's corruption or they're prone to biases, you know, that's one thing, and, you know, we can never get away from that. But the process itself is geared to be very fair and equitable to everyone who takes part in it.
That's a perfect segue. But before we do that, I gotta identify. Y'all loving us today. They loving you, Yasin. They don't be caring about me when I'm talking about myself. They loving you today, okay? Thank you so much. It's a Shada Allen Wilson. Thank you so much for your gracious super chat. And Joy Millhouse, a tremendous asset to the channel, always giving a love and support to the channel. So thank you so much for the super chat. Thank all of y'all. They loving you. Okay. Boom. So the forbidden acronym, DEI, right? And so two things about that. First thing is, since you already were not following, you weren't not following it, but because you said everything has been fair, but you had to kind of identify it at some point in a conversation, in a meeting. But then that goes into like kind of certifications as well. And me and you talked about certifications heavy when we spoke before.
Yeah.
So how has DEI changed for your organization, if from your lens? Because maybe it changed more for someone else in your department, or, you know, however.
So fortunately, you know, and you know, but I may be eating my words here soon at some point, but
right.
There, you know, I know that at the federal level, some of these programs have been found to be unconstitutional, and, you know, there's been some court cases that are, you know, that are actually in the works right now. But the state that I'm at, and many other states actually do not base their programs on any race-based or gender-based, you know, characteristics. Is actually on, they do what they call disparity studies. And, you know, these disparity studies, what they do is they look at geographical areas, and based on geographical areas, they see what geographical areas have not had more opportunities than others. And then, you know, people who are in those geographical areas now can then take advantage of the fact that there's different programs that will be allocated to, you know, to provide some equity for the fact that they didn't get that in the past, right? So, for example, our goals, and when I mean goals, well, we're talking about what we allocate to contracts, and these goals are whether they're going to be a percentage of that we're going to give to an MBE, which is a minority business enterprise, or a VSBE, a veteran small business enterprise. You know, we also have, and I know at the federal level there are things like minority. There's women-owned enterprise as well. But, you know, whatever, you know, designation is going to be given to the contract, these are the goals that we have on those, and those goals change based on the disparity study that is done roughly every 5 to 7 years, right? So, for example, the state that I'm at right now, we have an overall state goal for MBE is 29%, right? So we have a goal of allocating 29% of all of our contractual spend with MBE firms, right? Then we have a for small business reserve. These are businesses that are considered small, and they have a certain threshold of how much you can make in order to stay within that threshold. But we have a goal statewide of 16% for those.
Wow.
Now, within the goals, there's some things called sub goals, and that's where we have goals, for example, that may be allocated to African American, to Asian American, to women owned, Hispanic owned, Pacific, whatever the category is. Yeah. So
interesting.
a lot of levels to this, but it's not meant to be based on race or gender. It's based on the results of disparity studies that show where certain geographical locations have not received the same equitable treatment in regards to state funds.
Interesting. Okay, the way you broke that down is a lot different. So it's like similar but different because you all are basing it off of almost like a hub zone type of evaluation.
Yeah, like so then in those particular areas, then they'll break them down according to the population and the demographics in those areas.
Okay, so
those are the disparity studies. Like, so that happens in the background. And you can actually go to your procurement departments and ask them to see the results of the last disparity study. This is public information. Again, one thing you got to remember when you're dealing with government, this is all public information. It is all public information. You can request it. It's there for you. You pay for it, actually.
Yeah, right. With our tax dollars. And there's a really good question in the chat. But I wanted to just highlight that you heard what he said. He said 29% for MBE. And this is today. Now, we don't know what might happen tomorrow, but even after everything was rolled out, and I've said it multiple times that a lot of people are saying that you can't do it. It's gone. Certifications are gone. And I'm like, what do y'all mean? Like, where are you guys getting this information from? I've talked to so many people.
No, and at our state, actually, we're one of those states that actually don't even provide reciprocal preference for when it comes to accepting certifications. We want you to go through our certification process and be certified at our state level. The only one that we do give some reciprocity on is the veterans one, and I think that actually changed just recently. But for the most part, yes, you have to be registered in our state through our program, our certification program. So there's at no time soon our certifications ending in our state. We are a blue state, by the way. So I don't know if I don't want to get political at all, but it does have there's some impact as to what color state you're in, right? And that does have an impact as to how much funding is going to be coming down the line and things of that nature. Just to give you sort of an idea. There was a solicitation that I was working on for energy, and based on this administration's stance on that may have to be something that has to be now well, not necessarily, but we have to look at it and see how we're going to move forward or not. So
because the funding is going to be cut for it,
right? There's funding issues, right? So you have to one of the things that we always put into all our solicitations actually is that everything is contingent on funding, right? So we could pull a solicitation even after we award you and say, hey, we just funding was cut and we're sorry, but
been there. And that's so I've been there where I was awarded, didn't even know I was awarded. They never called me, never told me anything. I just happened to find it. And it was during COVID, so they were like, we don't have any funding, and then they eventually got the funding. Funding ran out, but still, it was that's happened to me before, and that's something that people see. Okay, so one thing in the comments, I know people want to share their information, but we're not going to deal with negativity. We're just trying to share information, and I was gonna put this comment up, but I'm choosing not to because it's just we're not going to deal with that. So,
hey, I could take it if I mean.
Well, I'll just give the first comment. The first comment was, most people who benefited from DEI was white women, only a small percentage was given to Black. So I don't necessarily disagree with that statement. It's when you start saying other things
Yeah.
that
No, so I mean, the reality is that a lot of the, when we call minority owned businesses, there was a large percentage that are white women. That's that's a fact. But I wouldn't say that they're the only people that benefited from that. I could speak from a lot of experience of having a lot of people of different backgrounds benefit from the programs that the state runs, particularly the minority business programs and things that along those lines. So
right, we're talking about 25 years. Okay, so if anybody know, it's him. So the rest of us that came late to the party only a couple of years ago learned about government contracting, it's a totally different thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna remove this person. So I usually don't have to do this. So this is like the second time I've ever had to remove somebody. All right. So just going into Ivan, who is a huge supporter of the channel always as well. We're about getting this money. Let's stay focused on the goal and pivot if you have to. A clouded mind keeps you in the storm. Ooh, you said a mouthful there. So, okay. Thank you, Ivan. I appreciate that. So going back to the certifications, right? Mm-hmm. So they're important because you guys have a goal. But right. If you're matching up two companies, apples to apples, right? Then are you obligated to choose the ones with the certifications?
So no. So again, everything is really dictated by the actual solicitation, right? So we'll that's one thing you have to remember is that the solicitation itself will tell you, how you're going to be graded and scored, right? How you're going to be evaluated. So the goal, so in these situations, what ends up happening is that if you are a company with a certification, right? Because there's prime contracting and there's subcontracting. Okay. Yes. So if you're going for as a prime contractor, then whether or not you have a certification or not doesn't really matter. What matters is, can you provide the needs and services or the products and services that are required, right? And most of the time we're going on, if it's an RFP, we're going on technical ability. It, most of the time goes more than pricing. And then if you're talking about, low bid or what we call IFB or ITB, those things are, low price. And, again, it doesn't really make a difference whether or not you have certifications or not. If you could provide the lowest price, then you get that. Now, when you get to subcontracting, now that's a different story. In subcontracting, if this contract has a goal, let's say the contract is just $1 million, just to keep it even, and we have a 25% goal on that, right? So that 25%, that whatever firm wins this contract, they have to have a firm that's certified that's going to fulfill that goal. Right. And that's where you come in at right now. That's where you partner with that firm. And when they submit, they propose you as their subcontractor to fulfill that goal. And we actually do it as much as we go as far as even as not only designating a dollar value, not only designating a percentage, but an actual dollar value that prime company will owe you over the course of this contract, right? So, that they have to pay you this exact amount or more, obviously, right? But at least this amount right here.
So 250K is yours. They have no choice. And you guys, so you guys step in to ensure that they do that. In a way.
Well,
give them everybody.
It depends.
Give them the money.
Yeah, it depends. What we try to do is what we ensure that the prime we have in the contracts, we have prompt payment requirements, right? Where we have to ensure that they have to pay you within a certain amount of time from the time that we pay them. Now, if that doesn't happen, you can backdoor them and come back to us and let us know, like, hey, this is happening, and we'll take care of that. But we don't get involved up front.
Got you.
Right. Whatever agreement you have with your subcontractor or with the prime, vendor, we don't get involved in that. The most that we do is that we ensure that there's an agreement in place, and by just asking to see it, right? Because Yeah, because what we don't want to happen is that, and this has happened to me in the past on a huge contract where a vendor, a prime contractor, and a subcontractor agreed in principle to to a percentage, and when the contract actually came through, and again, right, my procurement officer didn't do his due diligence by requiring signed documents, where they actually solidify their agreement of what they're going to do. And we went ahead and awarded the contract without this agreement, and they could never reach an agreement. So in the end, we had to terminate the contract. Huge contract. Had to terminate the contract.
Huge, like what? What numbers? If you can remember, because I know you got a million contracts.
It was this contract was it was like $1 billion and some change.
What? Okay, look, listen. Make sure you agree. Do the agreement. The agreement.
No, but listen, this is really, I mean, that's really, I'm glad you mentioned that, because actually this firm, this subcontracting firm, right? They didn't agree. We had to end up resoliciting. When we resolicited, and really, essentially, it was because of them that we had to resolicit.
The sub.
Yeah, the sub. Right. So the sub this time around decided to submit as a prime, and when we asked for a BAFO.
What's a BAFO?
Best and final offer.
Okay.
So listen, if you're asked for a best and final offer, if you feel that confident that, hey, my numbers are that good that I don't have to change them, then fine. But when we ask for a best and final offer, that's your opportunity right there. After we've had clarifications, after we've had the pre-bid meeting, after we've had all the amendments and all the after exactly what it is that we're asking you to provide, we ask you for a best and final offer. And this particular vendor did not even change their offer one bit, knowing that there were clarifications from the time that they submitted their financial proposal to the time that we asked for that best and final offer. There were clarifications about the actual scope. And all the other vendors that submitted changed their offer. They didn't, and they didn't get any, and they got nothing.
Because you all chose not to award them because they didn't change their price.
Well, they didn't. Their price didn't. It wasn't one of the best prices at that point. So it
was higher.
Well, it ended up being higher, right? Everybody else went lower, and since they didn't change theirs, right?
Got it. Okay, because I'm thinking like, well, if it's $1 billion, I'll give you 900 million. Right?
So listen. No. So by the way, be very clear about this. Best and final offer doesn't always mean that your offer price goes down.
Yeah.
Right. Again, because we've had, you submit your initial pricing at the initial, submission, right? What, based on the scope and the pricing sheet that they give you, you submit your information, and then you go through the evaluation. And then through the process of the evaluation, you get clarifications on the scope. You might have oral presentations, you might have amendments, after the pre-bid or pre-proposal meetings, there's questions that come in, then there's questions that are answered. So by the time that you get to a best and final offer request, you should have a much better understanding of what is being asked of you as a vendor.
But then also they were supposed to be a sub, so they should have even had more, like a little more insight, right, before the first time.
Again, they just
they were foolish.
Yeah, they were foolish. They missed out on a really grand opportunity, just because they never got their paperwork signed ahead of time, the first time around. Yeah, so again,
we passed out. I did too, because I honestly didn't think you were gonna say $1 billion. I was like, 50 million. He said $1 billion. What?
This was it's statewide contracts. So when you're dealing with statewide things like energy, fuel, IT, there's a lot of contracts that really they hit the ceiling with a with a not to exceed amount. Yeah.
Yeah, clearly. So I just want to touch you. Your segues are perfect because it always goes into my next question. But I just wanted to ask a quick question because this was a very low contract I did for landscaping, and they asked for the best and final offer, but they sent everyone's pricing, like for everyone to see. Is that like was that a complete blunder or
Yes, yes,
okay? Because I
yes,
was like, what? How
absolutely.
you gonna display my
No, no,
price?
no.
Okay.
That was absolute. Was that recently?
No, no. And it was very low. Like it was one of those like, I know this can't be right, but I'm
Let
not
me
gonna do anything about it.
send me that person's name and information. Let's try to figure out where they at. 'Cause that
I'm
was
gonna
wrong.
find it.
That was really wrong. You're not, you know, uh, even one, we're very careful to once because once you show somebody's pricing, that's what a company has, right? They have their pricing, and
Right.
if you expose someone's pricing, you're basically exposing them as as an organization, and I think that's not, that's definitely not appropriate. So that was a blunder on that procurement officer's part.
That had me so angry. And then everyone went down because they saw the lowest persons and everybody went under there. I kept my price.
Right.
So when you said keep your price, I was like, well, I kept my price because I knew what it would take to do that particular job.
And you see, that's a dirty trick right there, and that's
Yes.
that's exactly why they did that. Was
Yes.
that so that everybody could bring their prices down? That was not ethical. Yeah.
I'm giving you their name because I'm mad all over
Yeah.
again. So Ivan said, so I know everyone's numbers are different, but what did that job actually cost to get done versus what the contractor would make roughly? Okay, that's a great question.
Are we talking about the one I was just talking about just now?
$1 billion. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, that contract. The goal that they were assigned was about 29%, and but it wasn't of the billion. It was so we had different categories, and it was a large amount though. I don't recall exactly, but it was I'll tell you that it was in the hundreds of millions amount that they would have made. Yeah.
I don't even, because it's like, I know all money ain't good money. And if it don't work, it don't work. But it's like, I can't find too many ways that this wouldn't work. Like, I'm just trying to think, unless it's just all bad, so bad that you're willing to walk away from hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah. What ended up happening, it became an issue of, it became a political issue of, a race and
that's always an issue, I guess.
It got political where the subcontractor was accusing the prime of prejudice and things of that nature. But again, it's the business world, and yeah, I can't opine on that. I stay out of that one.
I got you. I know it's like.
Yeah.
It's
I can't get my opinion on that one. So yeah,
I totally get it. I could see you're like, but in with your position too, you probably see some stuff, see some really crappy this and it's like, oh gosh, I wish I could tell this young sister, no, don't do it. But then it's like, hey, this is their thing.
Yeah, I mean, one really important aspect of this whole thing, I think that I just want everybody to remember. If you remember one thing out of this whole conversation is pre-bid, pre-proposal meetings. They are so important in getting your foot in the door, in getting to know who the players are, and getting to know who's winning contracts. It's really an important place to get, don't forget that. That's really one place where you're going to get a lot of information at. So to your point, you're going to get to see who the people are because you will become, not that you have to become friends, but you will become very aware of who they are. You introduce yourself, you'll network with them. One of the things that we do is that actually at these pre-bid meetings, we have everybody sign up. And one of the things that happens is that sometimes when a vendor is looking to propose for one of those, solicitations, they may be looking for somebody to partner with to fulfill the goals that are assigned to the contract. So if you show up at the pre-bid, and then somebody says, hey, we need somebody to fulfill that goal that does this requirement. Who showed up at the pre-bid, and they'll contact us. We'll give them your information. They contact you guys. You guys get to talking, and that's how people get to build relationships. And you may that may not be the one that you go ahead and submit on, but maybe next one you might submit on together, right? And so on and so forth. So you build relationships from going to these pre-bid meetings, even if they're virtual. Get to know names, get to know who people are. Send emails afterwards with capability statements, and not just capability statements, but also I would say use cases, because a lot of times capability statements, they look all the same sometimes.
You said who? Use cases?
Use cases. Yeah, well, you just give some business use cases. Like, we did this for this vendor, or we did that for the other vendor. This is how we were able to save this vendor this amount of money. I mean, give us some money. I mean, give us the bottom line, right? Which is money, right? But a lot of times we're looking at, cutting costs, or we're looking at being more efficient, whatever that may be. So,
okay, so that's
stand out. Yeah, stand out.
And so when they contact you, that's contact the other companies too, because if you're a really, really small company, and people ask me this all the time too, what's the best way to connect with either subs or primes? And because sometimes those relationships can flip-flop, right? So that's a really good,
that's it right there. That's
collaboration.
The best way to meet them. Yes.
Collaboration over competition. So I love that. And so let me put this question up from Ivan. I'm flying you and him to the UK so we can have lunch immediately. Tea and crumpets. We're going to get some tea and crumpets. That's hilarious. Thank you, Ivan. Okay, so use cases, that is basically, so I can break it down for everybody. It's you're letting people know something, a standout thing about your company. So my go-to is we help the Philadelphia Phillies go to the World Series by pressure washing their stadium. Boom. That's my go-to. Even though it was a couple of years ago, but that's memorable. So something like that.
What highlight anything, and even if you're a startup and you don't have any contracts, differentiate yourself. What's different about your organization? What do you do that's different? We get so many emails that are sort of all the same, and sometimes some of them just kind of do. They may use humor. Sometimes it just just be creative. But one thing is just let people know who you are. That's what counts. Yeah.
So I want to talk about the certification story that we talked about before, and so before I get into that, I wanted to wait a minute. I lost my train of thought. But okay, let's go to the third story. So the third certification story, you told me it was a company that, because they were going, it was a big contract.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we have here. This is what we have. Paying attention to details again, right? And so I'm gonna start off by saying that, every solicitation tells you exactly what's needed. Every solicitation tells you exactly what's needed. Don't assume that we know what you mean, or that we know what you're talking about, or that that we're just going to put two and two together. You have to really provide the information as it's requested in the solicitation. So that'll lead me now into when we're talking about subcontracting. You have to be sure that, and if you're a firm who is selecting a subcontractor to pair with, you have to be sure that this subcontractor is certified, because and every jurisdiction is very different, but some jurisdictions will allow you to correct some minor mistakes, right? And what you call a minor mistake can vary greatly depending on the municipality or the procurement officer, the state, the interpretation of law. There's so many things that can go into that as to what can be considered, what exactly can be considered a minor irregularity, right? So your best bet is not to have to go down that route, right? Because if you do, sometimes it's an automatic disqualification.
Yeah.
So, we had a vendor who, for one reason or another, our procurement officer, when they were doing their review of their submission for responsiveness, right? Because there's two things that we look at, right? We look at responsibility and responsiveness. And responsiveness means, did you submit the things that we asked you and the order that we asked you, everything that we asked you for, right? All these different things. So, were you responsive? So, normally, if you don't submit all of the requirements correctly, we can disqualify you for not being responsive, right? Yeah. And that's just off the bat, right? So then, and then the responsibility factor comes into your ability to actually do the services, and that's the other side of, rating you on your technical ability and things of that nature. So, but when it comes down to responsiveness, this is ensuring that, you just fill out everything, correctly. So one of those things is to have your subcontractor be certified in the code. And, a lot of times people, these programs are very specific, right? You'll be certified in a certain NAICS code or a certain, UN, United Nations Special Product Code, UNSPCS code, or whatever. There's all these different codes, right? NAICS code,
PSC, right. Yep.
PSC codes, right? But it's basically just it's an attestation of what the work is that you do, and it's recorded by this number. So people are certified in those actual numbers. So when you submit, if the person who you submit is not certified in that particular number, right? When we go through now and we're looking in, you've made it through all the way through the technical, you made it through all the way through financial, and we are, we're getting ready to, to give you an award, and we look and we say, oh man, this guy's not certified. Sorry, got to pull you off.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. So the firm that I'm talking about, I mean, this actually happened to them where, and I don't want to say anything because it's actually they're still in litigation. They're still trying to get in, but it's a done deal though. But
but it's just lapse. It's not like they weren't qualified. It just a little gap.
It was they were not certified in a specific code that they said they were certified in, and because of that, we had to kick them out. We had already actually sent them a notice of intent to award letter, and unfortunately, that's just how it happens. So, and
can you let us know the number? Give us a lower than amount.
Well, their contract not to exceed would have been 100-something million.
100 million?
Yeah.
What? We gotta come to I was about to say your state. We gotta come to your state because y'all be these little $15,000 contracts that be having in Atlanta ain't hitting on nothing. We need to go to where you at in these
but now let me tell you something. Don't sleep on what we call small procurements or simplified acquisition thresholds, right? Don't sleep on those, because what those are a less formal way of contracting, right? And they're supposed to be more efficient. They're supposed to be quicker. They also, most of the time, right? And again, this all depends on your jurisdiction. This is why you need to know your jurisdiction's procurement laws, right? Find out what your procurement laws are, because they're public, and you should know what the procurement officers, what their ability is, right? As much as they do. And oftentimes the vendors know more than the procurement officers do, because they read in and out those guidelines and those manuals. But become acquainted with those things, right? And again, becoming becoming acquainted with is how you get to learn exactly what they're able to do, because at the small procurement threshold, procurement officers have a lot more leeway in being able to award to someone, and because a lot of times, right, we have what we call best value, we have what we call low bid, and when it's best value, it's not always low bid. It's what the procurement officer can defend as to why he's awarding to this one particular company, right? So there's a lot more flexibility in what they're able to do when you're talking about these smaller, these smaller dollar amounts.
Okay. So I know you've been talking a lot. So there's a couple of questions that I know I can answer to give you a little break. So Rick 77788 said, when he says certified, does it mean CPA or RN? So
no. So when we mean certified, we're talking about the certification programs that identify a firm as minority owned, or as women owned, or as veteran owned, or as being a small business enterprise. All of those different designations have a certification process that you must obtain in order to then be able to submit to these solicitations that have that as a requirement.
Yes, and so and that's really, they almost all of them transfer from federal contracting, local contracting, and corporate. There's some nuances, and I would say state probably has the most nuances, because it could be some, like I've been hub certified, but not hub zone, like where I don't have to be in that state. So I was like, I don't know what this means, but thank you, we got the certification, and all these certifications are free. So that's, just want to highlight.
I would say yes. Be careful of anyone asking you to for payment for certifications. That no state will charge you to certify. That's not how it operates. Yeah.
Reminder. And the only ones that you would have to pay for on the corporate side, and even them, they have grants and scholarships for some of those as well. So they're not even making those mandatory that you have to pay. So Shada Allen Wilson said, how do you get into the pre-bid meetings? Is that in all states?
That's a great question. So when you read the solicitation, right, wherever you obtain the solicitation from, that should give you the information of when the pre-bid will be, right? Every contract that's put out there will have a pre-bid or a pre-solicitation or a proposal meeting. And the purpose of this meeting is to talk to the general public,
potential bidders or
potential proposers, potential offers, is to explain to them exactly what the scope is of the contract, what the state is looking for, or what the entity is looking for, and to answer any preliminary questions about the contract there. And then there's also a time there where the vendors are given an opportunity to ask questions to clarify the scope, and then the state has to respond back with those answers to those questions. So that has to happen for every solicitation.
And some of them are mandatory, some are optional, but he said go to all of them. Go. That's what I was going to say that I lost earlier. So basically, like, I like how you highlighted that you go and you sign up because your name is going to be on the list. Usually it's your name, number, email. Mm-hmm. So even if you're like, I'm just here to learn. And I've done that when I first started. I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just in the building, right? Yep. But then somebody may need, your designation, because they do ask sometimes if you're a minority DBE or whatever on that form, on the roster. And so that person might, since you're listed on there, it might be 2-3 opportunities from now. And then you happen to have that list, or maybe you reviewed that list recently for another reason. And even if you haven't been to any other pre-bid meetings, your name is still on the list for this, and it could work for another opportunity. And then even for yourself, because people ask, I need to find a sub. Not everybody there is a big business. Not everybody there is a small business. So, and you can be a prime sub interchangeably depending on what the opportunity is. So, that information is for you as well as a vendor or a business owner.
Yes, another great way to get to know people is attending networking events.
Yeah, like industry days.
Yes, and I know that some people feel like it's cheesy, and I know that and if you feel that way, then maybe this is not the industry for you, because you really need to get out there and wax that floor, get your feet wet. And just talk to people, talk to people, walk up to people, talk to people. If you're not a talker, contracting, like I said, may not be for you, because honestly, unless you have some type of exceptional patented product that no one else has, you really have to differentiate yourself, and you got to get to know people and talk to people. So, look up your in your local, at your state. Look up your state's office for minority affairs, or your state's office for small business affairs, anything like that, right? They're gonna have a lot of networking opportunities. Times when you guys come together with primes and subs, and they'll bring you together so you guys can meet and get to know each other.
Matchmaking.
Make sure, yes, attend those matchmaking events. Get to know the people who make the decisions and spend the money. Yeah.
So, okay, I'm glad you said that, because am I really spending time with you? You know what I mean? Like, you've seen so many people. I'm talking about, like, when I go, sometimes it is, I understand that I'm going there to meet other business owners, but generally I'm going there to be in your face and say, look, I provide this, Mr. Contracting Officer, sir. Where's the contract at? Like, all that minutia, I'm over it, right? Because I've been doing this for a long time. So am I really spending time with you when I'm walking up to your desk and saying, this is what I do? You're gonna just send me to the website and say, sign up?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I am, but listen, but this is the thing, though, right? The more you keep doing that, then the more you learn, actually, and the more you get to see what's going on, and that relationship that we build eventually over the course of time, can lead to some things, right? I may say, you know what, somebody may come to me and say, hey, I need somebody to do something right now, and I'll know, like, oh, you know what, Sheena actually provides this service. Hey, let me give you Sheena's call, Sheena's contact info. Call her because she can help you out, right? And it's that. Okay. So it's you may not get that right then and there for what's happening right then and there, but you're not looking for right then and there. You're looking for the future, right? You're looking to build a relationship and build out the future. So right then and there, sometimes, yeah, that's already happened, right? Whatever we're looking at right then and there, people have already, people are already, they're bidding on that. They're putting in their proposals. People are working on that. You really want to work with me to talk to you about what's coming, and what any forecasts. And so a lot of agencies also forecast their needs. That's something else. You can ask your agencies, hey, what are your forecasted needs, right? Can you tell me what your forecasted needs are for the next 5 years? Or
y'all don't stick to that. Y'all don't stick to those forecasts. You know that.
Well, it's at least it's a good blueprint, though. Okay. Another way of saying of asking for information is, let me see your demand for the past 4 years, right? Because now, if you look at the demand, there's software out there that you can buy yourself that can help you, forecast, and you can see what some trends are in some industries. I mean, there's just so many different tools that you can use to do your research. But ultimately, getting in front of the people who make decisions is key. And, it really depends on your municipality, how big or small it is, on your state, how big or small it is, what type of policies you have on paper, if your state has or doesn't have, MBE programs or, goals. I mean, these are all different things that you have to consider. But you have to do the research and become an expert in the, whatever jurisdiction or municipality you're trying to do business with. So,
got you.
For example, I'll give you just a little brief example.
Please.
The state of Delaware, everyone knew that the state of Delaware, you can incorporate your business, very easily, right? So a lot of companies just off the bat would incorporate in Delaware, right? And that was just something that people knew, that because business was easy to do in Delaware, they went there to incorporate. But now there's other states where it's easy, where it's easy to incorporate as well, right? It's not just Delaware alone. So it's just doing your research and, understanding your marketplace, understanding your product. Again, you are the expert in that product. So, you should understand that industry as well. Don't just know what you do, know the industry in which you reside in as well.
Okay. I like that. I wanted to, because there's a lot of questions, but I wanted to get clarity, because this is something that I'm even a little, they have a lack of understanding about. So simple acquisitions. So is that, we're talking about state level, so I know it's different for federal. So does each state have a threshold, in each department, and each, or is it one number for the whole state?
No. So, that's the thing about procurement, is that it's really broken down, down like to the local level. So, there's the federal, then we got the state, then, there's even some areas have regional, regional purchasing groups, but then you have also at the city level, at the county level, at the local level. You know, we even have some political subdivisions that, you know, do procurement, and they have their own rules and requirements, right? So everyone's is not going to be the same. There's nothing, you know, I'm not aware of anywhere where it's cut across the board. And the reason is because there's different delegations. And what I mean by that is that agencies are given delegation to conduct procurements. So what that means is that, you know, for example, the Department of Transportation, right? They're given delegation to conduct procurements for transportation. The Department of Health, they will be given delegation to conduct procurements that are health related, right? So agencies have different delegations for different things, and not, you know, everything has the same threshold that would, you know, that would make it equitable across the board.
Got it. Okay. Because I mean, I think it was at some point where you're just saying that's the type of procurement. So I was always, I guess, assuming that it's usually capped at 750,000 and down. Like, but you're saying it's basically how it's kind of written and how it's procured.
Yeah. So when I was in the federal government, actually, which was a long time ago, I haven't been in a while, but it was 250,000. That was the simplified acquisition threshold.
Yeah.
Now at the state where I'm, and that actually, I think that went up during COVID because
it went up during COVID.
I believe it's going to come back down again, from what I understand. But I know at the state where I'm at now, actually, a small procurement or a simplified acquisition threshold is 100,000 for some categories and 200,000 for other categories, right? So again, it really all depends. Even within a department, different categories could have different thresholds on what is considered a small or a simplified procurement.
Yeah. So even with, and it's kind of like gets into the micro purchasing side, but I know even being in an employee, being a soldier, like we had card holders, and literally for that one section, they had 25,000 and that person had a card, or 10,000, or even I had one gentleman, he wanted me to do some pressure washing for some containers and something, but his threshold was 2,500. I'm like, what am I gonna do with that? I can't even, that ain't, that's not even one bigger, but that was his limit, you know? So it's like, you know, like to your point, it just so everybody understands that even you got the threshold, the overall threshold, and then there's different departments, different situations. Even when we did a school, they had grants. So they took grant money to pay. So that's not even, that's totally, and I never would have known. It was like, what, you got to fill out the invoice exactly like this because it's for a grant. And I was like, huh? You know, I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. But like, that's to the point of like making sure that you know who you're dealing with specifically, if you can, if they'll give you the information, because they may not always give you the information of what their threshold is. So yeah, thank you for that. Now I'm clear. So Ivan says, so you mentioned United Nations a few times. So does that open the door for those not in your state? Like me, I'm in the UK. Can I bid on a contract that may be overseas by way of your state? Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah. So we
great question.
Yeah, we do not discriminate in terms of, you know, where a company is located if they can bid on our solicitations. You just have to identify yourself as such, right? So we'll ask if you are considered a foreign agent, or if your company is, you know, headquartered somewhere overseas. There's just some affidavit that you have to fill out, and yeah, it doesn't make any difference, you know, for us. Yeah.
I think so. If I'm understanding correctly, Ivan, correct me if I'm wrong. I think what he's asking is if your state is doing an overseas contract, like let's just say Washington State. Washington State is doing a United Nations contract.
No. Yeah, no. So no, we our services are provided in state only. Yeah.
And so, okay, and that's what he said. Is that even a thing? Okay.
Yeah.
But thank you for the explanation. So Joy says the lessons, the warrants to be on top of our business. So yeah, like we have for my company, we have a tracker of all the certifications and their due dates, because we didn't got caught slipping a few times, but it didn't cost, you know, a gazillion dollars like these people. But you know, those things can creep up on you really quickly, especially if you're a solopreneur.
And remember that there's a lead time sometimes in renewal, right? So don't wait up until right at the time to get your stuff renewed to then submit whatever documentation they're asking for, because then you might actually go and, you know, you might expire before they finish their review process. So don't wait till the last minute. You know, one thing I like to say is that in my own life, in my own professional life, I like to work smarter, not harder. So I like to use tools to keep, you know, to remind me of things. So if you know, there's apps out there, you know, that can, you know, remind you of your certification dates when they expire. You could create your own, you know, tracker, as Sheena said, that, you know, just to keep the track of everything. But just, you know, try to have things that are automated and don't rely on your mind to remember.
Amen.
Because, you know, you will be overworked at some point. You're going to be, you know, stretched out thin, you know, in many different directions, and you're not always going to remember those little details that need to occur.
And it's such a, you know, quote unquote small detail, but that cost that person lots of millions.
Yep.
You know, just for such a small error. P. Burley said this is valuable info. Came in late. Do simplified acquisition include SLED contracts? I'm not familiar.
What's a SLED contract? Can you
elaborate on that? What's a SLED contract? So
single, is that a single
yeah, well, we need some clarification. Who was that? P. Burley. So Latrice says, can you please give a strategy on how a WOSB or VOSB can tackle a new contract together in cybersecurity? We're both brand new to government contracting.
Cybersecurity obviously is a big deal right now.
Huge.
You know, there's a lot of there's actually a lot of leeway in, you know, there are even exceptions that are given to departments to purchase cybersecurity very quickly. Like they have, you know, but one of the things I would say again is getting back to the subcontracting. One of the easiest way to get into cyber is in subcontracting, because you know we have these contracts where you know they're looking for resources, you know, at the end of the day, right? They're looking for resources, and a resource, you can fulfill that resource, right? But you have to be sure to be certified again, right? You have to get your certifications and be sure to, you know, that you're certified, so that way they can use you as a subcontractor on their proposal. As far as going in and being a prime, you know, it is very difficult to get, you know, to get something right off the bat as a prime. I think you have to, you know, build up your capacity as a sub first, and that's, you know, that's my advice to someone just getting in the game, right? If you have the resources to come in and you know just kind of go for the top, then that's great. I would not, you know, deter you from doing that. But if you're getting in and you're learning the ropes and you're kind of, you know, getting accustomed to this new you know, this new form of you doing business, it's something definitely that you want to start slow at least and learn a lot of the ropes and learn the business. And the best way of doing that is by subcontracting.
And I always say, if people haven't been watching me for long enough, I said I should have started off as a sub. I was just too stubborn. I'm like, I'm a black female veteran. I hold the cards. I'm a prime. I don't want to hear it. And then,
you don't want the risk. Look, let me give you an example, by the way. You know, when we talking about prime and sub, very simple. And this one is actually really good for you in cybersecurity. You know, we need so the issue of insurance, right? Particularly for technology E&O, right, which is cybersecurity E&O, errors and omissions, and that's usually what you have to get for you know, for cybersecurity. Now, as a prime, you know, I just did a contract where the firms had to have $5 million in cybersecurity, you know, E&O. For a lot of small businesses, that bill is probably around $30,000, right?
a year?
Yeah, well, to get insurance, you know, for $5 million per occurrence, right? That much is about, that policy is about $25,000-$30,000. So a small firm, you know, could you imagine that, you know, you're going as a prime and you have to have this before you're awarded. It's not like, you know, you know, right? You have to have this before you're awarded at time of award.
You can't say waive and upon award, But look, okay, wait a minute. Because look, sometimes with the different insurances, you can say available after award. You want me to get it first and I may not win?
So this is the thing, right?
Talk
This is
to
the thing.
me.
This is the thing, right?
Oh, Lord.
Everything is in the solicitation. Again, remember this key point. That's why you have to ask questions at the pre-bid meetings.
Okay.
Ask those questions. Hey, do I have to have my insurance at time of award or at time of solicit or at time of bid? Right? And a lot of times it could be either or, right? Yeah. It depends on regulation, it depends on policy, it depends on the actual solicitation. So in some cases, the answer is yes. You will have to have it at the time when you submit your solicitation. And guess what? We will go back and check. So don't think that you're going to fool us by, just submitting it. Like, we do go back and check. Yeah, we do go back and check.
No.
Yeah. And okay. And sometimes we ask you to have it at time of award. So in those cases, right, we ask you, hey, we're gonna, we intend to award this contract to you. You have 5 days to provide this information. Try to get that information in 5 days, because a lot of times they will work with you. Yeah. But sometimes if somebody's clock is ticking and they got to get this awarded, they're gonna go and they're gonna move on to the next person, and you're SOL.
Wow. Okay, I'm glad you touched on that, because I was just thinking about I'm working on a pretty large contract right now, and they're asking for the insurance that I ain't never heard of in my life. I'm like, what is even that? But I'm like, okay, it does say for all of them upon award, but it was like 3 days. And I'm like, well, look, we'll figure out how we're going to get it in 3 days, but I'm not about to dish out $30K. Like, that's insanity. But like you said, if you're just starting out, you don't have the funds, which most people don't. Some people do, but most people don't. And then you may not even want to invest $30,000 into an insurance that you may not ever use.
That you may not even use, right?
So it is a good idea to like sub or always ask. I ask every single time when it comes to janitorial. I ask to waive that stupid daggone commercial auto. That thing boils my blood.
But so that's a
it makes me so mad. I'm like, I don't have a commercial vehicle, so why are we doing this?
Let me say this. Fortunately and unfortunately, procurement is a field where in the next few years, a large percentage, up to 50% of those in the profession will be retiring. And what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of people who have been doing procurement for a long time, and they've been doing it a certain way, and they don't review and reevaluate their practices over time. So one of those things is exactly what you just said. Having automobile insurance for a contract that does not require any automobiles, right? Like that.
So dumb. Oh, it makes me mad every time I see it.
Right. So those are things that those are things that I think that you should get involved in. Look up your local, whatever your communities or your states, whether you have some sort of procurement council or you have some sort of legislative council where you can propose changes. You have to get involved, right? And these are the things that, as business owners, hopefully your state has an avenue, some sort of avenue for you to liaise with the state and figure out what's working and what's not working.
I love that. That's a great idea. Because I'm a fighter. I will fight tooth and nail if something doesn't make sense. So that's a great tip. I appreciate that. Okay.
One of the hindrances to small businesses contracting is bonding, right? And getting the right amount of bonding and insurance and all that. So municipalities and entities looking at those requirements and seeing whether or not they can waive them in certain situations or lower them is something that can be done to increase competition with smaller businesses or minority businesses. So it's just about getting involved and proposing some of those changes at your at your local levels or state levels.
Bonding is a whole conversation in itself. So P. Burley is back, says SLED means state, local, and educational entities.
Okay, and
so
what was
let's
the
get
question?
see
Can you
local.
go back to the question? Yeah, state,
Yeah.
local education energy.
Question, I know it was something, does that include? Okay. Do simplified acquisition include SLED?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Yeah. Every agency has the ability to actually contract, what we call in a simplified manner, right? And it's usually so what we have formal procurements and then we have small procurements, right? So the formal ones are the ones that are evaluated. They have a formal evaluation process. They have technical proposals. They have bids. They have all these different things, which are for large dollar amounts. And there's a whole process on how to get a contract, right? It's a whole rigmarole, it's a whole process.
Yes.
Now, a simplified process or a small procurement is usually get a quote, get two quotes, go ahead and get a contract. That's really as simple as it is, most of the time. It's just getting a quote and then getting a contract in place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Someone said, please talk about bonding. Look, we ain't even got enough time to talk about bonding. But I'm going to answer this for you because Sutton Cleaning Solution, you're going to have to go back because he talked in depth about how to connect with primes and sub and all that. So don't want to get on that because we haven't even really gotten through our questions yet. Okay. But you answered some of them. But I want to, officially ask, like, what are some of the mistakes that a brand new business will make? Like, when you see them come through, do you automatically know, oh Lord, they must be new? Some of the major red flags or some of the mistakes they made.
I would say, like, you talked about it earlier, and one of those things is coming to ask questions without having a reference, right? Just sort of saying, well, I don't know, like, just not having any reference point. I don't understand how you're interested in doing something, but yet you've shown no interest in what it is.
Oop. That's a fact. So, they want you to give the answer. That's why they want you to handhold, walk them through every single step because you have all the time in the world to talk to every single person that needs that help.
No, now look, while we're at an event, and if that's my responsibility for that event, I will make myself available as such. And during that time, that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna ask you, what do you know? And based on what you tell me, then I start from the top, right? But normally though, if you're reaching out, cold calling or something, like I said, either have something that you're asking specifically, understand. So, to answer your question more specifically, not understanding procurement regulations and processes is one of the main things that small businesses or businesses do when they're first starting out. Another thing I would say is just poor contract management, right? Eventually, when you do get a contract, you don't manage your contract, properly. Pardon me, you don't keep up with whatever your KPIs are, whatever your deliverables are. The other thing that you could say is that you may rely too much, and depending on how your business model is, but if you have too much reliance on one supplier, let's say, right? If you have something that you supply and, for example, you make masks, right? You make face masks. If you get your cloth from one company only, what happens when that company has, back orders, or they go out of business, or whatever may happen, right? What happens then? So you got to have some contingency planning, and not having a contingency plan in place for their suppliers and also for their operations as well. A lot of companies just go in with the idea of, and I mentioned this a little while ago, of not knowing their industry, right? They go in and say, well, I sell food and I know that my food is good. Well, great. I understand your food is good, but do you have any idea of, how many, what's the dollar amount of people, or what's the dollar amount of per purchase in a certain area, right? That people, that people normally make, or how much foot traffic do you get in a certain area that can support your business, right? In your industry, right? Is there a niche for the food, right? Is this a niche, type of thing, or is this So there's so many different things that you got to know. Is just not know, well, I cook well, my food is good. That's great, but you have to have more than just that.
And
So
I tell people,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, you know, just knowing your industry, and like I said, knowing the actual procurement process. You should know this. It is public information, right? Get out there, read it. It's on the websites. If it's not requested from the agencies, they should be able to provide it for you. You know, look for it in regulation, look for it in statute. Become very well acquainted with it. So that way, when you call a procurement officer, for example, Sheena, you mentioned that with that BAFO, they expose your pricing. If you knew at that time that that was not appropriate, you could have called them out then and there and filed a protest. It's, you know, and said, hey, you know,
yeah, that's and I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, I like to read, but reading the FAR is the fastest way for me to go to sleep. Like I will go to sleep the page one. So I get it. It's a lot to do, but then you still want to reference it. You know, I'll look it up and do Control F and find the things I need to find. But if you just refuse to read, like there's people that will tell me they got a 10-page solicitation. Now, you know, that's baby work.
That's nothing.
Like, that's a gift.
Ours are hundreds of pages sometimes.
10 pages is a gift from the Lord, okay? And they're like, I don't want to read it. What am I reading? Like, that to me is baffling. I'm like, you won't be able to continue very long. You might get away with getting a couple of contracts here and there because someone gave you an opportunity, or maybe you were able to get through that or hire someone. You will not get far if you will not read. That's just, it's not going to happen. There's no way around it, because even I've been on contracts as the third sub down. I still made money, but the third sub down, and I was the only one that read. I'm like, no, we can't, according to save everyone's ass in that situation. Like the whole gamut. And if I had not read, we would have all been on Fox 5 News or something. It would have been all bad. So those things are, you know, you just have to, even after, it's already after award. This is after we're already executing. And I was like, whoa, red flag, wait a minute. And so they had to change the whole contract because of what I discovered, you know?
Yeah. Let me kind of lead this. This is all kind of it all ties together, right? I'm gonna go back again to the pre-bid meetings, and that's really, and I'm gonna tell you why, right? So, you know, you're talking about the contract, the solicitation, you know, all these different things. Every solicitation, you should do one thing. You should do this here. You should go to the requirement section of that solicitation and take the, if anything, take that part out and see what they're asking for you to provide them in return, right? That's the first part. Understand what they're asking in return. And once you understand that, right, then you'll be able to do that. Now, that's why the pre-bid meeting is very important, because whatever you don't understand, whatever you have a question on, this is your opportunity to ask and get clarification on that subject matter, right? So that way, by the time you get to award time, all of these things are very clear to you, and you have a very good understanding of what's, you know, or not necessarily award. I'm sorry. When we get to submission time, you have a clear understanding of what's required for that submission. So the pre-bid meeting is so important in so many more ways than just one. It really opens the door for your understanding of the solicitation. That's how you get to understand. So that person who just said that they don't want to read the 10 pages or whatever, or the 100 pages, read at least when the pre-bid meeting is,
right?
You're gonna, and if you go there, you will at least pick up what this is about, right? And then you can begin to understand what it is that is needed, what it is that needs to be provided. But that's all going to happen at that pre-bid meeting. You know, that's where you're going to get your understanding at.
That is such, like, I think everything that you're saying, I'm like thinking of an example, but then also like super detailed things that will go over someone's head. So yes, go to the pre-bid meeting. I am a person that hated to go to pre-bid meetings. So, you know, it's that's the me thing. But then, you know, you can hire someone to go and just to be in the room if that's your aim and you're like, I already kind of know what's going on. But the great part is, like, that first one I went to, when I didn't know what I was doing. There were contractors that were pointing things out, like GCs, general contractors that do construction, were pointing things out that I didn't, of course I wouldn't have known, but neither did the contracting officer. Like there was a part that needed to be renovated, and then someone pointed out, but it's right near the IT hub or whatever. So, we can't go into the ceiling right here because then it's going to blah, blah, blah. So then it's like, oh, now this is institutional knowledge for me for the rest of forever, right? Yep. And so, and then also there may be so much crap going on at that pre-bid, they're going to cancel this because there's no way in the world that all these things are being pointed out that are blunders, if you will. Mm-hmm. They're probably going to cancel it. Like I can almost, it's like every single time I can always predict when they're going to cancel something, when it's not thorough, when there's too many questions, or it's going to be extended out so far that you might even just really even lose interest in bidding on it. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. So want to shout out to Dr. Jeffrey Person, always a supporter of the channel every single time. Thank you so much, Dr. Person. Greetings and Ramadan Kareem to Mr. Mohammed.
Yes, Ramadan Kareem to you too, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Love it. Love it. This session has been extremely informative, and I appreciate your expert knowledge shared with us. So it's funny. I always talk about Jeff because he was the very first person I talked to about government contracting 105 years ago. And he took 2 hours, didn't know me. We were like Facebook associates or something. And he was like, yeah, it's just all you got to do is this. Like he was just laid back about everything. And I was like, I owe you everything. So we're like, what, 15 years in or something like that of him always being a supporter. So thank you, Jeff.
And that's another thing, really, again, is those relationships. Those relationships that you build within the industry, keep them, nurture them. Yeah.
Come back around. Yep. And it's happened to me. I've talked about it multiple times on my channel. So Joy Millhouse says those pre-bid meetings are critical. You can always read the Q&A, but it's like someone telling you about a good movie you want to watch. Right. That's a great example. I really like that. So I want to talk about protests after, but one of the key things that is, I guess, I never thought could be considered until I had my attorney on. And that's when the bid is out. That means that we can't ever talk to you, right? But he was like, but if something, even if it's past the questions period and something is like super unclear or detrimental to the opportunity, he's like, you can still ask. So what is your take on when the bid is out and I'm still confused and I got really good questions? Will you answer those or you like kick rocks?
No. A good procurement officer should take your questions. Now, when you say the bid is out, do you mean that the question period has closed?
Question period has closed. The bid is out. I missed it. I didn't ask any questions. But now that I took my time to read it, or maybe I just became aware of it and I have a question, but it is a serious question.
That really is going to depend on some factors here, right? It's going to depend on the urgency of the solicitation. How urgently is this needed, right? Do we have time to add another amendment to take your questions in and answer them? Are the questions of a nature that could potentially call the whole solicitation into question, right? It really would depend, right? So if you just missed it and you have like, hey, can you explain to me how we're going to contract? No. We're not going to waste our time and do that. But if you come back and say, hey, I'm looking at this and that drawing for that bridge looks like, I don't know how this could be possible. Can you, so something like that, if it's more technical in nature, then possibly that could very well extend the solicitation. Yes.
Okay. So this is a dirty word that I have. I literally started my channel because of this word. Okay. But I guess my question to you is either can you explain, or is this a word that you've heard a lot and you want to be on my team of hating the word, and that's middleman. So what is your thoughts from your lens of what that is? Is that a term that you all use? Or is that something that you? Okay, so no. The answer is no.
So I mean, let me understand where you're going. So when you say middleman, are you talking like a pass-through?
So okay, this is the way my understanding of how people are coming to understand what middleman is. And it's basically, you know, in their mind, they're brand new, so they don't know. They're saying that I want to find an expert to do this job. Like I don't have a specific niche, and I want to hire the expert to do the job and then basically collect checks. So I guess in a sense, yeah, I mean, I know essentially that's a pass through, but is there ever any middleman type of contract or contracting?
So, you know, I mean, in a way, right? In a way, any contract that is for any contract that has like overhead, right, kind of falls under that kind of category, because we're giving an entity a premium or a percentage to provide services, right? So I mean, on one side, that sort of fits that mode, but really, in the from the sense that you're saying it, no, it's actually illegal.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Because you're in order for you, so part of you being able to provide or be a prime and have a subcontractor is that you should be able to provide a commercially useful function on that contract, right? So if you're not doing anything, you're providing no commercially useful function, right? You're not doing anything. All you're doing is charging the state a premium for someone else, and you know, if that's not our agreement, then that's illegal, right? So
I gotta clip that part of this video and make it into a short, because I need people to understand. I'm surprised you haven't been hearing it, and that's what I was worried that at some point contracting officers are going to get wind of this word, and then it's going to F it up for the rest of us. You know what I mean? Like it becomes a thing where people think they can sit back and collect checks. But I'm like, if you got a contract with the government, federal, local, whatever, and you're a prime, you are obligated. They don't give a damn about
provide a service. Yeah, you're obligated to provide a service. That is your job to provide that service. Now, yes, you could have a sub do some of the work, but there's also guidelines as to how much of the work a sub can do for you, right? So in my state, as a prime, you have to self-perform at least 50% of the work. At least you have to self-perform 50% of the work. So that in by itself eliminates the possibility of you being a pass-through or a middleman.
Okay, thank you for that, because I needed to hear that. And that's, I mean, and there's some states, and then there's even some industries, like I know on the federal side for construction, you can sub out up to 80%. So I mean, again, that's because you got to sometimes hire specialty skill labor or whatever, but like it's still a big chunk that you have to perform. Even in that 20%, it's like the high level parts of the contract, like the superintendent, the whoever is writing the check, like that's the biggest part. You know what I mean? Like I know there's skilled labor, but there's still a lot of that going on. So as far as protests, I know federal has one way. So does someone have to pay to do a protest in your state?
No.
Even at the counties or cities or anything?
Not that I'm aware of. Simply in our state, you simply have to send a formal letter protesting anytime before the award is made.
Got it. Okay. And I know it's getting to that time. I told him,
and somebody, I think I saw a question earlier, or somebody mentioned this or something, but somebody said something about mentioned about we were talking about we were just talking about what did we just mention? No, they were talking about the
cyber insurance.
No, never mind. If it comes back out, never mind.
I'm sorry, I'm over here just over talking. Okay, so we have another. So we can't mention his state. So Tanisha asked what state we can't mention his state. So Rick 777 said, if the state purchases power from a company that won the contract and have a 10% minority requirement, can I perform safety inspections or audits as a support role to satisfy the subcontractor role?
As part of that 10% requirement? Yes.
What do you mean? Yeah.
Yep. If that would be so. Another thing is right. Oftentimes when we have goals on contracts, we will actually tell the vendor, or we will give the vendor suggestions on where they could fulfill this goal at, right? But to this question right here, anywhere where the vendor uses you for a commercially useful function will satisfy that requirement. So just as long as they use you to do something on that contract, then that will satisfy whatever that goal is.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So it could be whatever that 10% ends up being, because it could.
Yeah, it could be safety inspections, it could be audits, it could be data entry, whatever it is. Yeah.
And you got to write it out. So we're coming up on the time, but I want to give another shout out to Robert Daniels. Thank you so much. GovCon Now student Sasha Savage. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Shada Wilson. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Joy Millhouse, always a support of the channel. And Jeffrey Person, always a support of the channel. I appreciate y'all tremendously. So how can you give any last tips, tricks, strategies, hail to the nose, anything that you want to share, or even a story of like, this is the worst contract that has ever happened that I've ever seen in 25 years. I love those.
Well, you know, I've done so many things over the years.
Like, I'm sure there's a lot of bads or goods.
Yeah, there's a lot of bads, there's a lot of goods. You know, but what I think I like to focus more on, you know, on some of the, like, the impact that that procurement has actually.
Okay.
And so, you know, one thing I'll state is that procurement is sort of or you know, contracting. I'm gonna say contracting, government contracting is an opportunity to level the playing field for a lot of us coming from communities where we have not had those opportunities, you know, historically, or you know, where we've been cut off from these opportunities, you know, purposely. Contracting, government contracting is really a great field to level. It's a great resources, a great resource to level the playing field for us going forward. Especially, you know, I know that there's a lot of talk about, you know, DEI and all this and all that. I understand that, but look, guess what? Right now, with the government talking about, you know, getting smaller and shrinking, that's just opportunity for all the small businesses that are operating. You know, there's the government will need to contract out those services that they normally provide to small businesses and to, you know, firms out there that are in the country. So I think it's going to be a really good time actually for businesses right now, in terms of, you know, it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. I think it's just going to be a good time for business. So, you know, like I said, learn your procurement laws, you know, get acquainted with the people that make the decisions, learn your industry as well, do the research. You know, there's so many different things that take one bite at a time, right? You can't take the whole apple you know, in one bite. Take it one bite at a time, and eventually, you know, you'll get there.
That is, thank you, because they don't listen to me when I say, like, yeah, I'm not saying that I have a lot of friends that work in local government, federal government, and it's sad. I was a federal employee a few times over. But if we're going to strictly focus on small business, right, this might be a good time for small business, period. Like everything else, you might be pissed off to the right, pissed off to the left, but for small business,
time for small business,
right? So we got to focus on that, and we got to lean in, and we got to do right. Everyone's not meant to be a business owner. Own that. It's okay. It is okay to not have a business. And look, I ain't gonna lie, I was just telling my friend earlier, I was like, when we used to be like, oh, I'm a boss, that is a little overrated sometimes. So you might want to stay right where you at, okay? Because it could be challenging on the other side, and you know yourself, yes, and you grow as you're going through some of this stuff. Like, I don't want to deal with this. And I've had people tell me straight up, I'm like, come on over to the dark side. They're like, I don't want to do that. I'm retired. Leave me alone. And I'm like, fair. That's so fair. I get it. So yeah, we got to own what we can control and just keep pushing. I've been probably getting more requests for DBE contracting than ever. I don't know what the heck is going on. Okay, so Hill and Son House said I have my UEI and cage. I'm licensed clinical social worker. What kind of procurement should I go for? So that's all federal.
So, well, no, I would tell you, well, yeah, those certifications, but if you're at a state level, I would tell you look up the Department of Juvenile Services, look up the Department of Human Services, look up the Department of Public Safety. You know, they have I would look up also HR programs, right, where administration offices might need you know, trainings and, you know, emotional intelligence, or, you know, whatever. There's so many different ways that you can try to you know, to present that. But it's about, so this is another thing actually, and I'm glad that you brought up that question. Don't limit yourself to not going or not looking at certain solicitations because you think that they're not in your field. Because sometimes there may be a component inside of a solicitation, a larger solicitation, that calls for, you know, and in your case, for example, as a therapist, there may be, you know, there may be a solicitation that's calling for the removal of a teenager and placement into a group home. Part of that requirement may be a transportation requirement, but it also may require a therapist to be there at the intake to talk to him, right? So you may miss out on the opportunity for that you know, for that opportunity because you saw transportation, but you didn't dig deeper and see that, oh, there's also another component within that is just outside of you know, outside of transportation as well.
Boom. Look, he just gave you the keys right there. Forever grateful for that, because that is something that I had to realize too. I've had janitorial contracts mixed in with construction, and I'm like, well,
that's a good one. IT with construction is another one. Yeah.
And you would never think that. So you got to read. I mean, or I don't even want to say pay someone to read, because the bad part is when those people leave, or they might be a scammer, or there's so many things when you're not in control, and then you want to eventually hire trusted people, and you got to still keep some sort of chokehold on that as well. When you have people that work for you, you have to be aware of what's going on in your business. There's people that are like, I don't know how to do an invoice, and they 2 years in contract, and I'm like, how? Because the system that they use was some sort of state internal system, and they never did their own invoicing.
Right.
I'm like, how are you paying tax? Let's not even get into that. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, you know, like you got to be involved. You got to be a real business. You got to do this for real. There's some people who do contracting and they're self-performing. That's cool. I've seen it my whole military career. Not a problem. But when you're bringing other people into the fold and people's livelihood dependent on you, you need to make sure that you're in control of what the heck is going on. It can go left real quick, you know? Yes. So she said she's very grateful. All right. So how can we connect with you? How can they find you? And I always say this, but make sure you do not harass this man about, you know, things that you can't answer on your own. Only the things that you can't answer on your own. Okay. Make sure.
I want to address the Knight's Way. Is that Ivan?
That's Ivan.
I'm learning the names already, right? So the machine learning and artificial intelligence, listen, I am a big proponent of that. When I said earlier about working smarter and not harder, I'm looking for ways to use AI all the time in our processes. And, you know, I would implore you as well as an organization to spend that money on some AI. You know, it'll help you. It will help you greatly. It will help you greatly. It will be money. Your ROI will be very well spent.
Wow, you picked up, because, like, you know, I talked to Ivan, so you picked up exactly where he was going with that, because I know he's definitely.
I am into that. I am all into, you know, I'm all into looking for ways to focus on the how can I say this? I want to focus on the things that need focusing on, and not the things that should go through because they're good, right? So let's focus on the exceptions. Let's focus on the things that require someone to actually look at it. But if it's not, if it's good to go, it should just flow right through the system and, you know, make its way through. And that's what AI is there for. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So how can they connect with you?
Well, you have my information, so you
Yeah.
have it. Yes, you can provide that. It's
It's
got
going to
my
be in the description below.
yes. So
Yeah.
you can contact me by email, and yeah. I had a great time, by the way. Thank you very much. This was my first time doing something like this, so I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I want you to stay on for a quick second, but if anyone had any very, very, very last question, he got to go for real. But if you got any burning desire questions, and if you might have missed it, but if you came in late, you can't ask questions because we've already answered it. But this was great, and I asked him if he could stay on for another hour. He told me hell to the no. So, so we really, really got to go. But thank you, everyone. There was a lot of y'all on, and make sure you hit like and share this video with someone that might find it beneficial. Thank you again to all my super chatters. Please stay on, Yasin. Until next time, y'all, it's your favorite veteran, and we out.